Now if we were watching my film right now, this is where we'd kick into the first song. But I didn't finish my film. Hi, I'm and welcome to the first and last episode of How I up my HSC and the one thing that meant the most to me and my life. What you are watching is an explanation as to why what you are marking is not my major, and why my major was never finished. My major consisted of three main elements: a vinyl record of my grandfather's music, a music video based on those songs, and a behind-the-scenes booklet detailing the entire events leading up to and following the creation of my project. I was planning on making an 11-minute, 5-part music video that would tell one story over these parts, detailing my grandfather Stephen and his journeys through loss and love. Stephen is my grandfather in real life, and so this entire piece was a tribute to him in both the record and the film, and it was incredibly near and dear to me. The first thing I got out of the way was designing from scratch my record of my grandfather's music, which consisted of a front and back cover, a lyric insert I designed so that people would be able to derive more from the music, record stickers based off the album Ziggy Stardust, of which my grandfather actually gave to my grandmother with a message written on it for her. I recreated this almost perfectly and got my order of custom records cut from a company in Melbourne with only one drawback. The covers were a folded over piece of cardboard with no top or bottom. You could get the covers printed with the tops and bottoms, but only for orders over 50 records, and I wasn't prepared to drop another $1,000 on top of the $400 I'd already paid, so instead I made my own tops and bottoms and then glued them on. And while this was a big setback, it wasn't even close to some of the other ones that I had. I then got onto the script for my piece's story that follows my grandfather Stephen. Stephen is dating Sherry, my grandmother, and they are both happy until she leaves him for one of their mutual friends. This leads Stephen to descend into alcoholism and fly off into space to be alone and die by Saturn, where they had once fantasized about going together. Now in theory this could have been easy, right? Make a model of Saturn, render it, and then animate a rocket to go past it. And instead, I decided to shoot all of my project on film, and things just got worse from there. There are obvious risks associated with shooting film that can make it an unreliable medium. Firstly, it's expensive. The first camera I bought cost $350 and was advertised as fully working but came with a broken zoom and light meter. So I had to send it back, which cost $80 on its own, and then only got refunded $200, which not only dug into my budget but also delayed my shooting for quite a while. Then my second camera arrived in a working condition but for another $500. Now that I had a camera, I had to get film. $40 a roll for 2.5 minutes of footage, then to get it developed costs another $40 to develop and $40 to scan. So already, I'm well past $1,000 into my budget, and I haven't even started shooting yet. Another challenge that came once the film arrived was that I realized any footage I did shoot, I wouldn't be able to see for another 2 weeks and $80. So any footage I did shoot was a risk, both time and budget-wise. However, even with all this in mind, I was determined to make something different to what I'd seen anybody else doing, which was a mostly analog production. Although shooting all of my effects practically with green screens and miniatures, while a good idea, was also where some big problems arose. You see, shooting film is becoming a lot more popular these days, especially with that vintage aesthetic. However, popular doesn't mean easy, and this is something I realized from the get-go. I've been shooting film photography over digital for years now, but even with my understanding of the medium and the issues that come with it, as well as the lengthy pages of writing that Richard Twohy, the leading Australian film developer, sent me on how to shoot film, could not prepare me or save me from what was to come. The process of actually shooting my piece was a nightmare, and having to do this explanatory obituary of sorts almost feels like going through a photo album of you and an ex-lover. It hurts. For starters, the biggest problem that any filmmaker will face is trying to get people interested in his project, and one thing that all students are not interested in is anything that takes a lick of effort and a modicum of time, especially when they've got their own subjects and lives to deal with. So trying to organise my actors was incredibly difficult, as anybody other than my main actor were never available for more than once a month, and by the time we finally did all get together, it was on my last roll of film, which ended up jamming halfway through, leading to us only even getting 40 seconds of footage. Up to this point, everything was going fine. Most of the important and hard-to-do scenes had been shot, such as the green screen and the forced perspective, and all that was left was pure character drama, which means that I could just shoot it in a day or two. All I had to do was message Richard and get more film. This is where things went down. Richard, keeping in mind that he is the only Super 8 film developer in Australia, had gone on holidays until the very end of July, 2 weeks before my entire major was due. He had luckily set up a backup person developing orders for him, and then they had an unexpected family emergency and had to cancel all other orders as well. Frantically worried, I messaged Richard, who said not only could he develop my film with priority as soon as he returned, but he could also organise film to get sent to me despite being on holidays. So I sent him the money for the last rolls I needed and organised it with him, waited, and then kept waiting because as I sent him more and more emails asking when the stock was going to arrive and if he got my money, all I was left with was an empty inbox. To make matters worse, my actors were now not available on any days to shoot, and so I had to send off the few rolls that I had shot to be developed and hope for the best. I used the money I was meant to get more rolls with earlier to pay for the developing, and then finally I got to see all of my footage. This leads to the third section of problems. Shooting on film, there are different types of film speeds and light balances for the circumstances you're shooting under. Think of it like ISO and white balance on a digital camera. When shooting tungsten, one must use a specific filter with the camera to make sure that the colour of the footage comes out correct. Despite using this filter in the most important shoot of my project, something happened in my camera that made all of the footage come out completely blue. This made the green screen shots entirely unusable as the whole shot was blue and thus I couldn't key out the green backgrounds as there was no green background. Not only that, but I noticed I was missing a roll from the footage that Richard had sent me, and when I questioned Richard about it, he told me that apparently one of the rolls had snapped inside the camera, meaning that all of the footage I had shot on that day was missing. So what I ended up with was some test rolls of footage, the main special effects section completely unusable, an entire bulk collection of scenes gone without a trace, and the only one roll that did work somehow jammed and only got 40 seconds of footage. I also had several other shots I would have been so excited to shoot practically if I could, such as a computer screen being done with translucent paper and cutouts, as well as other shots that worked out perfectly that I now can't use in the finished product, such as the forced perspective shots that would have meshed with the miniature rocket shots. And so here we are now, several $1,000s wasted, time and love put into remembering and honouring my grandfather, either lost or unable to use, and a multimedia major with nothing to show for it except a wonky homemade record. But where can we go from here? Well, while I'm obviously devastated that the one project I invested the most adoration and effort into in my entire schooling life went completely out the door with no repercussions, and while it may seem like I'm giving up, I'm still extremely devoted to this piece, and I'm determined and committed to complete it regardless of the outcome we face at this current point in time. This project means so much more to me than the marks it may garner, and I hope to one day be able to present it to the world, however long and however tedious the process leading up to that may be. Thank you for watching.